And she's a woman, so she'll outlive you.
Yeah.
Are you done?
And action!
Hey, welcome to PNRShow, season 1, episode 22.
Woo!
For today, July something, what are we, 16th, 2014. Rahr and Sons, Stormcloud.
Thor's got PMS!
And longer than life, I'll take a strong stout over stride. I prefer to confer with a half pint of ale than live a long life till my private parts fail. For life without liquor is to no avail, so bring me lager for life. I'd rather have lager than life.
There once was a girl named Anheuser who said that no man could surprise her, but Pabst took a chance, found the Schlitz in her pants, and now she is sadder but wiser. A beer limerick to start the show about a girl,
Should
which
we
will
just
come
stop
in
this and
very
restart?
handy later on. Welcome to the Pint of No Return Show, your one-stop shop for das Beer, das Discussion, das Fun, and das Inanity. German, see? I'm doing German. My name is Rob, and with me is Gary, Jeremy, and Keith, and we are your Pint of No Return. I don't know, what would you call us? The Pint of No Return Congress? The Pint of No Return... The what?
The cast.
The cast and crew! All right, welcome, guys. Hi, guys.
Hey, Rob.
How are we doing this week?
Never better.
Yeah?
Sure. Why not?
It's the middle of July. I was going to say the dog days of summer starting, but up in the Northeast, they're about to have, like, they're calling it the second polar vortex, although from what I've read, it's only going to go down into like the low 70s, which is hardly an Arctic front. But Keith, do you have your snow shovel ready?
Well, here in Western New York, we never ever put the snow shovel away.
Yeah.
Just in case.
You got the rock salt just sitting out there by the door.
And truth be told, my my snowblower is still out. I had not put it away for the summer yet.
When was the last time you had this? What I mean, was it like April? Was the last time you had to snow blow your driveway?
Yeah, sometime probably early April.
Wow. Don't you miss that?
No.
No.
No, I often wonder why the hell I'm living here.
I have said that many times. I have told you, Texas is waiting for you.
And in California, we just instituted $500 fines for things like washing your car outside.
I saw that. Yeah. The way it was phrased in the newspaper was inappropriate uses of water.
Oh, that's an interesting way of saying it. So anyway,
they're going to fine for car washes, watering your lawn, anything they determine to be inappropriate.
Yeah, I guess the logic was that we're in a drought and water usage actually went up instead of down, so they decided they need to get a little bit heavier-handed with their...
Here's my question. I know you're anxious to get right into the beer, but my question is, I was thinking about it today. What do the folks do who own car washes? What do they do?
I think that's okay because a lot of car washes, at least the newer ones in California, actually recycle water.
Oh.
So yes, they use water, but they recycle it. So it's actually better to go to a car wash.
You're telling me they recycle the water, so the water that a person gets on their car is actually dirty water from someone else's car?
It probably has some filtering mechanism in place, but yeah, it's been used before. Most water any water that you drink has been used before, so it just typically goes through
all of the water on Earth has been used before.
No, my water is virgin.
I don't think so.
You can tell.
Somewhere along the line, some dinosaur peed.
Some dinosaur drink the water that's used in this beer.
That's true.
Now we're going to drink it.
That was an awesome segue. We're going to finish up our Texas unit tonight straight to the beer. Forget about things like drought and famine and tens of thousands of immigrants crossing the border. Forget about all that. We want to talk about beer. And to finish up our Texas unit, we've got Rahr and Sons, our folks from Fort Worth, Texas, and they've got a India Pale Ale called Stormcloud. It's got they call it, what is it? A German American IPA.
German style American IPA.
German style American.
I'm not quite sure what that means.
I don't know either.
Find out. Yeah, that's
We're going
really
to find out.
kind of misleading. Even if it's
I wonder if
accurate.
it's different kind of like malts or yeast or something that they're using to make it that German
I
influence.
don't know. It sure doesn't say on the bottle.
No.
Well, I invite you all to pop the top because there is an odor coming off of mine, and I am curious if y'all are getting it.
Oh yeah.
That's a funky nose.
But I will tell you, mine is not unpleasant.
No, it's different but not
A little
unpleasant.
citrusy, a little florally.
So I'm getting spent malts.
Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I
That
don't
is
get much of a hop nose at all. So I'm wondering if mine has spoilt.
It could have.
I don't really smell much in the way of hops either, but I don't know if that means it's spoiled, or maybe if it's just lighter on the hops.
It's better.
I get more malt coming
Better
out.
in the glass. I'm gonna do my official beer taster.
Yeah.
It
Alright.
pours kind of a golden caramely color. It's got that really, really, really thinly carbonated head. Very, very tiny bubbles.
Let me just send some
It's,
stale air at the top of mine because it doesn't smell bad at all now. But it definitely smells way malty and not hugely hoppy.
Yeah.
Awfully on the medium dark side too.
Do we know anything about the alcohol in this thing?
6.5.
6.5.
That's a good IPA.
I got a nice head on mine though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Mine's all the way to the top.
Looks a little bit unfiltered, maybe too. What do you think?
Yeah, mine's got
Oh
some-
yeah, definitely. But that's okay. That's the way it should be.
Yeah, this is not one of those see-through beers.
I'm getting some more wheat aromas than I normally would think I sense in the IPA.
To me, it smells like canned malt. Like if you were to homebrew with a kit and you got liquid malt, this is what it smells like.
Yeah, they don't. Their website doesn't describe German influence. The hops are Warrior and U.S. Goldings, and the malts are Vienna malt and Crystal and Two Row. So
Okay, so it is German style,
malty.
American hops, and probably brewed in the American IPA style.
So that label is accurate.
If misleading.
Well, let's not dilly-dally. Let's
Yes, please.
All right, let's drink it.
Rahr and Sons, Stormcloud.
Come say hi. Keith, you look
Keith's
thrilled.
face. Oh my gosh.
This
Keith
is
goes
this
first.
Keith just
mine
made
may
it-
be spoilt. Spent. Spunk. Oh, I'm gonna try it again. Make sure I wasn't just. See, the problem was I had a good IPA earlier tonight, so I might just be tainted now.
What'd you have earlier?
I had the 21st Amendment.
Brew for your die.
Yeah, Brew for Your Die, which is it's not great, but it's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
This thing is all malt, and it's not a great malt.
There's a
The
little
hops,
bitterness
the hops
in
are
it.
really underneath. More, I don't know, more of a pale ale than an IPA to me. Tastes
Like-
good though.
I got the hops all up front.
It tastes like caramel covered bread that
Keith
sat,
got a
that sat in the
bad
sun
bottle.
for 3 days.
I don't know. The
If
more
that's an
my-
IPA, that's the worst IPA I've ever had.
You got to. Okay, that's. He's starting his review now.
Yeah.
Why don't you start, Keith? Since you just
Well, I'm going to start with the asterisk
kind
that
of rambled
I
into
have
it.
I have a I have a suspicion that mine may have turned on the trip from Texas up. In which case, I will definitely have to try another one sometime. But this is not good. It's all malt. There's no hop flavor in mine at all. There's a sourness to it. Heavy upfront caramel sweetness and almost sticky on the back of the throat. I get almost no IPA flavor. A slight like amber flavor to it, but no IPA and literally no hops. So I have a feeling my nose was a good indicator when I opened it that this one might have turned a little bit. So I'll leave it at that. If I have to give this a number, it would be with an asterisk, but it's going to be like a 2.
Oh.
I can swallow it without puking, and that's as high as I'll go.
Ouch.
Wow. Wow.
Well, I think I have a slightly higher opinion of it than you. It's definitely malty for an IPA. What was this? You asked about the alcohol level. and
It's
it
actually
went right over my
6%.
head.
I'm looking at it on Beer Advocate.
Okay, 6. So a little
6%.
Rahr says
a
6.
little more sweetness makes sense. The maltiness is more like what I would expect from a double IPA, but it doesn't have the hop profile to balance that out to me. The hops are there, they're just not as assertive as most IPAs. That's a pretty good flavor overall, just not what I would expect from the style. But as I drink it, it's it does taste good. It's kind of growing on me. I'd probably give this a 6, just because it's not, I don't know, not exactly what I would want from an IPA, but not a bad beer. I think I'd drink it again.
Is anybody getting Scotch ale out of this?
Oh yeah. I'm getting a little bit of that.
As I get into this a little more, I'm totally getting Scotch ale out of it.
Yeah, I was thinking it was. It's more like Jeremy said earlier, like a pale ale, but to me, it's almost like a red ale or a Scotch ale. I'm getting kind of some of that flavor profile coming through.
No.
Definitely. But yeah, sweet, little bit of stickiness definitely has that in it. But I mean, like Jeremy, the taste is growing the farther I get into it. I don't know if it's because it's kind of airing out a little bit after being out of the bottle and maybe warming up a little bit. It's making more of the flavor come out. But it is an IPA, and that being said, I've had a few of those in my day. So I mean, last time we had the Rahr's Blonde, which I rated based on other blondes, and you had to give it a pretty good rating. Rating this against other IPAs, even just single IPAs, it's interesting. It's different. I like what they're doing by using those different malts than we normally get. But there's a lot of really good single IPAs out there, and this is good. This is drinkable. It's got an interesting flavor, and I would definitely have it again. But it's certainly not up in the top tier of the single IPAs. So I think I'm going to go along with Jeremy's rating and give it a 6, because unlike Keith, it is drinkable and I'm enjoying it. It's just not remarkable in terms of IPA.
Okay, I quite like it. It does have that bitter hops, but like I said, it comes right at the very beginning and then just kind of mellows out as you go through the taste. And there's that caramel and that malt that everyone's talking about, and it kind of rounds it out a little bit and kind of evens out, I would say, the hops. And then the aftertaste for me, I mean, this may sound crazy. Tell me if I'm crazy, and I'm the least experienced beer drinker of all you guys. I almost get like a little Hefeweizen taste.
You're
to it
crazy.
at the end. Thank you.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. but I get like a little wheat, like a little banana vanilla type taste
Yeah, I
that
am
you
not
get
tasting that at all.
at the back. So I mean, it's sounding like at least there are 3 different bottles because we're getting totally different tastes.
I think the trip that
No.
to the did the same thing to the bottles that Jeremy and I got.
I wonder if
I'm
they
definitely
used
getting some
a German
banana-
style yeast in it. That
I'm-
could give it a banana-y hefty
Yeah,
flavor.
I
German.
would agree with that. I mean, I normally like that and look for it, and I'm definitely not seeing any of that in this. This, the more I get into it, is tasting more and more like a slightly off Scotch ale.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm also getting
than
a lot.
anything
I'm
else.
also getting a lot of wheat in the aftertaste at the back. So
Wheat is such a lighter profile than anything
Yeah,
I'm
this-
getting in this. I just can't
it's
agree with that.
really weird. I don't know. This is kind of an enigma for me. That our because usually, even though our ratings differ, usually our tastes are what we're tasting is pretty close. And for there to be, such a disparity between the West Coast, Texas, and New York, it's just, I don't know. I find that quite odd. Anyway, I kind of like it. It's what I'll dub the less offensive of IPAs that I've ever had, and I
That's because it's
I
not
quite
an
enjoy
IPA.
it. It's really nice. Or sorry, India Pale Ale. Excuse me.
That's because it's not an India Pale Ale either.
It's a slightly hopped amber ale.
Anyway, I'm gonna give it a 7
Wow.
because I think it's pretty good.
That rounds out to a 4.25.
Rob,
have you had this on tap ever?
We'll,
No.
we'll throw out the least coast.
Are you
judge,
kidding me?
and it's
Did you voluntarily get an IPA to drink?
Well, taking one for the team.
No, I think
No.
So Untapped's rating was a 3.4 overall out of 5, so that's about a 7.
Yeah. Hey.
Beer Advocate is a 77, but they only have 217 ratings, so that's pretty low for a Beer Advocate.
Well, I'm sure most of those are from Texas because Rahr
Yeah.
doesn't go very far.
Probably. So anyway,
It's it's very interesting that we had such different experiences. I mean, we're used to a beer skunking for one of us every now and then, but
yeah. What's interesting is that the blonde from Rahr's got such a much higher rating from us across the board.
yeah.
So
It's very... Anyway, that'll close out our beers from Texas, and I think the stuff we did from Texas a while back, the Shiner stuff was pretty much universally a big hit. This set was some hits and misses.
yeah.
I
So
think that's
Texas
normal
doesn't know
as
everything about
you
beer.
get into smaller breweries.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
We
Rob.
actually had a brewery open up in Conroe. Now, I've mentioned Southern Star, and we've done Southern Star on the show. But we've actually had a brand new brewery open up called B52. And it's their logos, if you guys ever want to Google them, the logos are very, very cool, B52 bomber and orange and stuff. And they do brewery tours, kind of like Southern Star does, and lots of breweries do. But they allow people with dogs, and it's kind of like a big party. So I'm looking forward to trying the B52 stuff. And if that stuff is up to snuff, that may be in the next pack that I send out.
Nice.
Even if
So-
it's not, I wouldn't mind trying it.
There you go.
Do they call their brewery the Love Shack?
They do
They
not.
really
I
have
hope they
to.
have a rock lobster.
Yeah,
Probably not.
yeah. They have to have girls with wigs serve all the beer.
Oh yeah, that is a cool logo with the bomber dropping the bottles. That's good.
Hey, moving on to our pint taken segment. Hey Keith, do you have any music for us? Bumper music or bumper people?
Oh, no, I didn't prepare the bumpers for this week.
So that was like a one week
No,
thing.
I have them still, but I forgot about them and I didn't load them up. So, sorry.
Once again, the greatest podcast in the history of mankind.
Well, you complained about them last week. Now you're complaining about not having them. You really ought to pick a side.
I did. It's fun to complain about them. That's
Oh,
where
okay.
my side is.
Good job.
Thank
You're
you.
consistent.
Today, Marvel Comics announced that in their reboot of the Thor comic book line, they've decided to make a change. Now, previously, we've had in Marvel Comics, Spider-Man changed from Peter Parker to a Latin American immigrant. And we've had, let's see, one of our Green Lanterns come out as gay in the DC universe. Well, back in Marvel, they announced today that their new reboot of Thor is going to be a woman. She's picking up the hammer for Thor. She's not actually the same person. Something happens to Thor and is no longer able to wield the hammer, so she picks it up and carries it. So, you get into a little bit of semantics here of whether or not she's really Thor, or if Thor is just a title, or what's happening. But what say you guys about Thor being turned basically into a woman?
So,
Wow.
as the non-comic book person, it seems like if you're going to name your comic book character after a legend, you should probably stick to something closer to the legend. That's just me. Come up with a new character, but don't call it the same thing.
It's an interesting take on, I get why, I guess I kind of get why they're doing it, but it's kind of weird because it's based on a mythology and stuff. So I can understand Spider-Man changing and some of these other characters, that Green Lantern, and those things are completely made up. But Thor is actually based on mythology. So I'm not quite sure why they decided to change Thor. I mean, it'd almost be better to have Iron Man now be a woman. I could see Pepper Potts taking on the mantle of Iron Man as opposed to Thor.
She did actually wear the suit in Iron Man 3.
Yeah, but I mean, like, really, truly
Yeah.
becoming Iron Man. Of course, they'd have to change it to Iron Woman. So,
Right.
I actually think it's a little weird. Like Jeremy said, it's just keep it what it is. But I think it's going to make for interesting storylines, because one of the great dynamics of the Thor mythology is the Thor-Loki dynamic, and the interactions between them. So now that Thor is a woman and Loki is a guy, I could totally see Loki trying to trick Thor into some kind of, weird situations, I guess would be the way to say it, because they realize they're not actually siblings, and it could make for some interesting situations to come up between the two of them, with Loki being a trickster.
I'd have bought it more if Loki was a girl.
Yeah, I never think about that.
Okay.
That's more believable than Thor to me.
I've linked a Time magazine article to our show notes about this topic, where they talk to they interview Will Moss, who's Marvel Comics editor of the upcoming series, along with Axel Alonso, who is Marvel's editor-in-chief, and Jason Aaron, the writer for the Thor series, and asking him, just exactly what you're doing. And basically they talk about this being a shot in the arm to the Thor franchise, and they explain it away by saying from time to time other characters have picked up the hammer of Thor. This is really no different. And they talk about the fact that women now comprise 47% of the comic book public, and 67% or something, I think that's the number, of people on Facebook who look for comic books information. all those seems to be excuses as to why they're doing it. First of all, let's not kid ourselves. They're doing it for press.
Yep.
They're doing it for little podunk podcasts like us and big time news outlets like Time to talk about it. So that would be reason number one in my mind why they're doing it. Secondly, when they talk about other characters picking up the hammer of Thor, I'm pretty sure they didn't become Thor or call themselves Thor. They were just wielding the power of Thor. So
Right.
this is a step further in my mind, and like the change with Peter Parker over to the new guy for Spider-Man, it's gonna generate a lot of heat, and a lot of the comic book geek nerds are going to revolt against this, and a lot of folks who didn't read Thor before will pick it up to see what's going on. But they've left pretty clear indications of, at least to me, in this article, that something happens with Thor, and she picks up the hammer, which tells me that at some point he'll be coming back. So to me, I think it's going to be a little more than a stunt, and a way perhaps maybe to jumpstart this female character, whoever she is, to become a superhero in her own right.
And spin that off into a series.
Yeah, and I'm all for. I mean, if it were me, I'm like, let's just write a good female superhero. I mean, let's start there. But I mean, if they decide to use this as a jumpstart and create a good female superhero, then so be it. Big deal.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that I read, not the Time article, but other articles, they were talking about how this is not like how the character of Thor is actually now a woman. They're not doing it as like a Superwoman or a Batgirl type of thing where it's like this a secondary character or a second character. It is Thor is now this woman character. So based on what you said, I mean, it'd almost be like Thor has to die or something like that, or I don't know what's going to happen. I'm sure
he's still going to, according to them, he's still going to be around. He's going to be a character in this story arc.
But will not be called Thor, or maybe called something else, because they said that basically the character of Thor is now a female character.
Yeah.
And not like this new character of a she-Thor type of thing. I really hope that they.
Oh dear God! I hope they call her She-Thor.
Thor, like She-Hulk.
Yeah. I mean, they've done all this.
I want it to exist.
Yeah, I mean, they've done all these crazy things in the past with trying to get female characters in there. What I hope they do is there's so many female superheroes or female characters in comic book stuff that are female characters that are written and drawn based on what catering to a young male audience, and I think that's hopefully something that they're going to try to overcome and actually portray this character as a strong female character, not something that young teenage boys fantasize over. Because if they really do it as a real, true female character that is a strong female character, it's something that as a father of 3 daughters, I would feel inclined to actually get those comic books for my kid and have my daughters read those. But if it's just a woman character written for teenage boys and drawn for teenage boys, it's not something I care to even have my kids read.
Of the 2 versions historically of Wonder Woman that have been done over the years, the big boobs and little short shorts and high-heeled go-go boots, and the fierce, kick-ass, athletic-looking Wonder Woman, I choose the second one.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see. In fact, I'm hoping that in the new DC movies that they're putting together, that's chick that they picked to play Wonder Woman, who looks like she just walked off a supermodel runway, that they hopefully go more towards the fierce kick-ass route, because that reflects, I think, where our society has come. And look, I'll be the first person to tell you, it doesn't. When I first read the headline, I was a little kind of put off because Thor's a very important character in the Marvel universe. But when I thought about it, I remembered that I stayed away from Battlestar Galactica, the reboot of Battlestar Galactica, for the first year, specifically because they turned Starbuck into a woman. And then when I went and watched the show, she is Starbuck to me. I love the original show. But she is Starbuck. I mean, so much so, I named my dog Kara because my wife wouldn't allow me to name her Starbuck. But I named my dog Kara, and that's because in the reboot of Battlestar Galactica, Starbuck is a total badass.
Yeah.
And she's a great character. So
if they do Thor in that vein, I would think it will be a success.
Yeah. And it's not even really Thor. It's a substitute teacher for Thor.
We all know how much we love our substitute teachers.
Yeah, absolutely. So the traditionalist in me says, hey, you can't change this stuff. And the guy who's had a little more exposure, a little more experience, and found a character that has been rebooted as a different gender, saying, look, it can work if it's done appropriately. So more to come. We'll see. Okay, so Jeremy, our next article, Jeremy put up, I believe, or was it Gary? I apologize.
This is Jeremy.
It's definitely Jeremy.
Can you guys do me a favor, and I'll do this too. When you put a topic up, just put whose name, who put it up there, so I can kind of segue to you. That would be great. To lift the curtain just a little bit.
You know that the Google Docs tracks changes, and you can just look that up. But
whatever.
It shows who typed it.
There's a
too much work. I get it.
Fox Time Warner deal has something awesome for comic book fans and superheroes. What is that, Gary?
So, I mean, we've kind of alluded to merger deals and talked about that kind of stuff, and our love-hate relationships with our internet service providers and those things. But the Time Warner deal, where they are essentially trying to acquire Fox, could have some, I guess, a bit of a silver lining for comic book fans, because that means that a lot of different comic book characters will now be under the same corporate umbrella, which will make kind of mashups a lot more easier. So this article, and I'm not going to go into too great a detail because we have a lot of other things going, but you could answer questions like, who is faster, DC's Flash or Marvel's Quicksilver? Because actually Fox has movie rights to X-Men, so you could get into having a competition between Quicksilver and Flash to see who is actually faster. And Quicksilver is the guy in the X-Men Days of Future Past that can move really fast. And if you haven't seen that movie, there are some pretty funny scenes with Quicksilver in it that are in themselves probably worth watching that movie. Then we have the elastic battle between Mr. Fantastic and DC's Plastic Man, because Fox also has the movie rights to Fantastic Four. So you could get into a competition of who is the most flexible, stretchy. I don't know. I think Gumby wins that one anyway. Then the next one they had was who's the more powerful telepath? Professor X from X-Men, and DC's Martian Manhunter, who is going to be the better one of those two. And I don't really care about that one. But more interesting, who is the strongest, Superman or the Silver Surfer?
I think we determined Superman pretty much lost.
Yeah, because he got voted out by Keith.
Well, yeah, because he was voted out, but he was voted out because technically by all lore he wins everything.
Yeah,
which is why I wanted him out of the damn rank.
But to me, the interesting thing is, kind of talking about what do you think about these combinations of different superhero comic book franchises into a single storyline, where you combine stuff that has stood alone for a long time, and all of a sudden you're kind of mashing them together. I mean, this new company could see a huge revenue stream and try to milk that.
I will tell you that my guess will be that as soon as the rights run out on the X-Men with 20th Century Fox, and on Sony, which owns Spider-Man, or has rights to Spider-Man, as soon as that contract runs out, they're taking them.
Disney take it back.
Yeah, and they will totally reboot it, because Spider-Man and the X-Men are a huge part of the Marvel Universe, And since it's all under the DC umbrella, you know that they're going to want to take them back. And
Marvel.
Yeah, Marvel will. And so, I mean, in the end, it'll probably be moot. So I don't think this will have as big an effect as they're indicating it could be in this article.
I don't know. I don't know how long those contracts are for. I mean,
yeah, I was trying to look that we're talking, and I didn't see a specific date.
Those could be pretty long. I mean,
it could be.
So
that article seems to be more speculation than any fact-based.
Yeah. I think it's just fun conversation. What if you could actually have a movie where you start combining these franchises that have never been combined before?
Right.
So, and to me, I don't know. I kind of like where you keep the franchises kind of in their own little world and let them do their thing in there, because when you start getting too much crossover, it kind of, I don't know. To me, it kind of waters down the stories, and you get into questions of, well, how come Wolverine didn't intervene in this other situation, or how come Iron Man wasn't helping out when he should have helped out?
Yeah,
I agree.
It can be hard.
Crossovers are definitely muddy the waters. I've never been a huge fan of those myself, so it's. I think you're right. It's kind of I've always had that problem with X-Men. I just felt that there was too many heroes in the X-Men in general. And as soon as you start crossing over in these great, epic, single hero storylines like Spider-Man and Superman and Batman, as soon as you start mixing those up, it just I'm out. I tap out.
Okay, so I got some news on those contracts. For Sony with Spider-Man, the contracts were for a set number of films. Those rights were up for renewal after Spider-Man 3, and Disney allowed the renewal of the rights in exchange for regaining television animation rights for Spider-Man. So that one will probably last a bit longer, at least while this particular franchise with Andrew Garfield is still running. I know they're at least planning a third movie, and who knows beyond that. For the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, those are owned by Fox. And interestingly enough, these rights are perpetual. They've got it apparently written into the contract that as long as there is a film in some level of production, they retain the rights.
Wow.
So as long as they've got something in the can, they can keep, which is probably why they decided to reboot the Fantastic Four franchise.
That's why there's constant comic book movies over and over and over and over.
Yeah. The reason why Daredevil has actually returned to Marvel is because there's been such a long gap between the Daredevil movie and the Elektra spinoff and now. So that actually reverted back to Marvel, which is why they're now prepping a Netflix series based on Daredevil and a whole bunch of Hell's Kitchen superheroes.
Cool. So
there you go.
And that's the idea of getting these superheroes to compete against each other. I think that I would rather not have them do this, and I'm sure they won't. Like Jeremy said, this is all just kind of fun speculation, but I think that it makes for a much better fan community if you leave the who would win this battle up to folks like us and other various internet forums to
leave it to the professionals, right?
Right.
Yeah. It makes for much better publicity and fodder to let people argue about it online than it would be to solve it in a movie.
Yeah. Our last topic for tonight, NASA had a press conference yesterday, and they announced that they will prove, or at least humans will prove that there is life elsewhere in the universe within the next 20 years. Now, that's a pretty stunning thing for NASA to say, because historically they've been kind of cagey on that. They kind of accept the model that with so many stars that could potentially have habitable planets, that could potentially have liquid water, and so on and so forth, we could literally be looking at tens and hundreds of thousands of possibly habitable planets just in our galaxy. Well, they took it a step further, yesterday, and they actually predict that there may be over 100 million worlds just in the Milky Way that may host life, and that they predict that we will be able to find that life within 20 years. They're going to use their current telescope, the Hubble, the Kepler, and they're announcing the launch of a transiting exoplanet surveying satellite in 2017. Now, just for a quick background, what that is going to be a semi-deep space satellite that will sit outside the bounds of it'll be in high Earth orbit. And what it's going to do is going to take these intensely deep 7-megapixel pictures of the closest and brightest stars to Earth, and they'll take time-lapse photography using these amazing cameras. And what they will look for are what's called transiting phenomenon. That means stuff that crosses in front of that star. You see little dark circles; those are planets. So they'll be able to follow those planets and then zero in on them, and then use their various techniques that they have for other planets in our solar system to determine if there's water, if there's a breathable atmosphere, and those types of things. And that's how they'll zero in on some of these worlds that will have habitable life. Me being the space nut, I think this is really, really cool, but I'll let it go to you three to say what you think about it.
Yeah, 20 years. Good luck.
I actually think it'll be sooner. I mean, the odds are increasing in our favor. It's sort of like, it's grown every year. We get closer and closer to the discovery, and it's an exponential curve, not a linear curve. So, I mean, it's not saying that we're going to find intelligent life. It's saying that we will find a planet that has some form of life on it, and that could be as simple as a plant or an amoeba or something like that. So I think it'll be sooner than 20 years.
What is the specific wording?
To detect some form of life many, many, many light years away, that means they would have had some sort of communication device long enough ago that a signal is getting to us. You can't just say, because it appears that a planet may be habitable, there's life on it. That's not finding life.
You want to know what the exact wording is?
I do.
Okay, so the space agency outlined a plan to search for alien life using current telescope technology and announced the launch of transiting exoplanet surveying satellite in 2017. Matt Mountain, director and Webb telescope scientist at Space Telescope Science Institute in Baltimore, says, just imagine the moment when we find potential signatures of life. Imagine the moment when the world wakes up and the human race realizes that its long loneliness in time and space may be over. What we didn't know 5 years ago is that perhaps 10 to 20% of stars right around us have Earth-sized planets in the habitable zone. It's within our grasp to pull off a discovery that will change the world forever. And they are describing their own estimates as conservative.
That's what I'm wondering, is what are their estimates? I want to know the wording of their bet that they're putting out there. They're basically making a bet. It says, we will do within 5 years.
NASA planet hunters calculate that 100 million worlds within the Milky Way galaxy are able to sustain complex life forms, and their quote is, from NASA astronomer Kevin Hand, I think in the next 20 years we will find out we are not alone in the universe.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's open-ended to the point of ridiculousness, actually. I mean, all you have to do is open an Inquirer, and you'll find proof that alien life exists on our planet. So, I think he's covered. So, no, I won't argue with
Dennis Rodman and
yeah, I mean,
Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Will Smith proved that in the first movie.
I know.
Well, to me, like I said earlier, they said, 5 years ago that what we didn't know 5 years ago is that perhaps 10 to 20% of the stars around us have Earth-sized planets in the habitable zone. So, in the last 5 years, they've realized that the amount of planets that are actually within that sweet spot of habitable zone is much greater than they ever imagined.
Yeah.
And that's only in the last 5 years. So it's like as they keep
They're playing
gaining
the
more and more
statistics
knowledge.
game.
Yeah, they're playing the statistics, but I mean it's like the Moore's law of space discovery. They're gonna learn more and more as they go through it. And like I said, I think it will be sooner than 20 years before they find planets that have signs that there's life on them. I think there's more than just communications, like Jeremy was saying. There are things that they'll be able to tell with those telescopes.
Well, I mean, it's likely that we're going to have real people on Mars in less than that time. So, I mean, we're likely to find real signs of real life on a planet, one of our closest planets.
Or at least signs of a life that used to
We're
be
talking
there.
about going out into the Milky Way and searching further, and that's great. But that's the statement that they're making is, signs of any life on any planet. So, again.
Although, if you were to go to the NASA website and look under their latest news releases, apparently this happened on Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did not bother to list it on their website as. There's no press release.
No, they had the press conference yesterday, not Monday. It was yesterday was Monday.
Yesterday was Tuesday.
Sorry.
Well, okay, from now until Monday, there's no mention of it on their website.
Oh, they're probably saving it for this big.
Yeah.
That is the other thing,
You really expect
for everything that they say. I mean, vague though it may be in this press conference, that there is a lot of stuff that they didn't say, or that they couldn't tell us.
You want to talk conspiracy theories for a little bit?
Sure.
How about the fact that something along the lines of Men in Black is probably closer to reality than we know? NASA is actually in on it, and the time that they have to be quiet is actually going to be up in 19 years, which is why they can say this, because they actually already know. And they're just going to put out a big press release.
See, we were right.
Mm-hmm. Make
Is that
themselves
what you
look good.
believe, or are you just being kind of facetious?
Am I?
I'm asking.
Am I? Or
is that just the Stormcloud talking?
Oh God, no, that's over here still. I can't.
We have not.
The first year I've ever had on the show that I'm not going to finish.
Wow. That's pretty bad.
Incidentally, I agree with Gary's topic for next week. I really that should be our topic. Best alien in movies or television.
That's not a topic. That's a game.
Yeah, but that could be a show topic, meaning something to talk about.
Okay. Well, I think he meant it as a bracketable type game. Like
I'm leapfrogging off of that into actual show production. So.
Okay.
This is happening next week. Anyway, more to come from NASA. E.T. real. We need the Guardians of the Galaxy more than ever. Man, I can't wait for that movie.
That's going to be good.
Yeah. All right,
Ninja Turtles,
on to our half-pint segment. Our picks for the week. Believe it or not, Keith has a topic, although he did steal it.
Yeah, well, I'm stealing it. I know I'm stealing it from Jeremy, and I think I'm stealing it from Gary, too. So I think we all have one pick for the night. So
I did not take that because I knew somebody else would take it. So.
Oh, okay. So I know 3 out of the 4 of us are playing it, so we should probably just all talk about it a little bit. But actually, it was Jeremy who found out that the long-time Android-only game Ingress finally came to iOS, and I've been following this game in news articles for a couple years now. I think it's about 4 years old total, but it kind of hit real popularity a couple years ago, and it's really fun game if terribly implemented. That's kind of how I have
ringing endorsement.
It's a really fun game. It's what they call an augmented reality game, which means you go out and you play it in the real world, which is good. It gets you out walking and driving to new places and experiencing new sights and new places you've never been before. And the basics of the game is you're trying to take control of these invisible energy sources that are leaking into our world, and you're trying to control them for either one side or the other, the good guys or the bad guys. And you choose your side when you sign up, and you go and assist all your other players into capturing these energy sources and maintaining them and keeping them from enemy capture. But in order to do that, you can't just look at your phone or your iPad or your game console. You have to get out and go to them to make this work. So it is kind of fun, and it's a heavy GPS game. So one of my biggest complaints about it right off the bat is it is a battery suck like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, it's going to take your battery down to nothing.
Yeah, you're gonna want a battery backup case like I use, or a car charger for between locations, or something, spare battery, because you use this thing for 15-20 minutes and it's gonna suck about half your battery away.
Oh, it's not that bad.
Well, it gets there. It depends on what you're doing. If you start launching attacks, it does disappear even faster than just scanning.
Yeah, it is intense.
It's pretty. I mean, you can physically feel the heat in your phone. So, as you get in.
That's because you've been buying a dinner and taking it out to movies and on walks.
We go to such lovely places as the post office now, so that we can tap the energy source and hack it away. But it's a pretty interesting game. I invite people to look it up. If you download it and try it, go through the tutorials, and then don't give up, because the tutorials don't really teach you much beyond the very basic mechanics of the game. And there's a bunch of resources online that tell you actually more about what the hell's going on, including missives and videos from the start up and the launch of the event that get you kick-started into the storyline. So it's worth doing. But it's a free game. It's the company that runs it is actually a Google arm, so it's actually it's why it can be so involved and free. Is I think because Google's running it. I'm sure they're stealing data out of it somehow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're monetizing all that data somehow.
Yeah.
Does it have ads in it?
No,
it does not. You do have to
definitely monetizing your data.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know if they're monetizing it; they're using it.
Yeah.
But like they do with all their Google products,
with everything,
including the ones that make this show.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Hi, Google. Good to see you, buddies.
Yeah, they're right next to the NSA and the Men in Black.
Hi, NSA.
Hi, aliens.
Jeremy, do you have anything to add since this was actually your topic?
That's a pretty good summary of it. It's one thing I could add is don't get discouraged when you start playing it and immediately everything you do is destroyed, because there are so many other players that are higher level than you.
Yeah.
Just keep going. You can level up relatively quickly. And,
you can. I'm still level 1.
Well, you gotta walk around more.
Jeremy has the advantage of being in the San Francisco area, so there's a lot of stuff going on there.
I'm a little more rural.
Yeah, so am I. So.
Well, but so you level up in a week.
Yeah.
How do they determine these nodes?
They're usually based around public monuments or known places, like your post office or your libraries and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and they also are looking for hidden gems, so they want people who know of interesting places to suggest them as nodes.
Yeah.
And it really seems like a lot of it is to get out and explore and find things that you didn't know about.
Yeah. The node suggestion feature isn't actually in iOS yet, from what I understand.
No.
I can't seem to find it anyway. If it is,
no, it's not there.
But
yet.
it's in the Android one. You can go and snap a picture of something and suggest nodes, and then area supervisors will go ahead and approve stuff, and then new stuff pops up. But the interesting thing is, Jeremy's right. Is there's a lot of already established players, so it is really kind of a little bit hard to break in. But at the same time, that's a good sign, because the game's been out for 2 to 4 years now, and there's still a lot of very active established players, which means the game is fun once you get going, because otherwise people would walk away from it. So there's a reason to get into it and fight your way through the incredible learning curve on it that I'm still fighting my own way through.
And the incredible disappointment of all of your work being destroyed immediately.
I had teammates save one of my 2 nodes early on. I got one, I established it, I didn't even know what I was doing yet, I only left 1 resonator there, and somebody came in behind me and filled in the rest with all like level 8 resonators for me. So my 1 node that I own is like completely armed and unstoppable. And to the two guys that did that for me, I I appreciate it a ton because it's giving me a ton of experience points or action points or whatever they call it.
Yeah, it is fun. It is cool to see that when you claim a point and you have zero, pretty much nothing, and you look at it a little while later and somebody's come along and reinforced it. That's pretty cool. The teamwork with only two teams and a lot of players, the feeling of teamwork is pretty significant.
All right, guys. Thank you.
My
My
checking out, especially while you're downtown, Rob. If you're getting out and walking around at downtown around lunchtime and stuff, it'd be definitely a fun game to play.
We'll take a look. My pick for the evening kind of merges my passion, board gaming, and the lovely iTunes. Lords of Waterdeep is a big-time favorite game of mine. It's a kind of a European-style, what they call worker placement game, but set in the D&D universe. The city of Waterdeep is well known to folks who play D&D, but it's not a D&D game where you are collecting treasures and going on dungeon crawls. You basically play a mover and shaker, kind of one of the unseen hidden forces operating in Waterdeep that sends out bands to accomplish these quests for you. Basically choosing different spaces to get either workers. Those workers would be like wizards, clerics, rogues, or warriors. You're getting gold to accomplish certain tasks, playing intrigue cards that either help you on these quests or screw over the other players. And it's a very fun game. Plays pretty quickly, board game wise, about an hour. And they've had it out for the iOS for about a year. I had it actually picked it up when they first came out with it, and they put on the expansions, the Scoundrels of Skullport, which is a really, really cool expansion, and they have multiplayer play. It's a very quick game, very easy to pick up. You don't need to know anything about D&D to play it. It's just a lot of fun. So I would suggest that one as well as Small World. Small World is, think of it as Risk Light. You can play with it from 2 to 4 players, although they have expansions where you can play with more. And you basically take on a race that has a special power. And these races and these special powers interchange and become different every time you play the game. So there's a high degree of replayability. And basically you conquer territories on this small map. But there's really not much math or much die rolling to it. Basically, you just have to have one more army than whatever's holding on to that territory. And without going into too much detail, it's very simple, very quick, and easy to play. And Small World 2 is available on the iOS as well. It's a great game to play on the iPad. Really easy to play, very quick to play. And I've been playing some of both this week, including Hearthstone, which Keith recommended on last week's show. He and I played a couple of nights ago, and he schooled me, but good. I'm still playing with the beginner decks, and Keith's just way, way ahead of me, and just started doing mean things to me after a while.
Well, you actually did really well on your first match with me, so I had to take revenge.
Yeah.
You played very competently.
But all three
I look
of those
forward
games,
to you collecting more cards and building more decks.
Yeah, but pick up Small World, because I think we'd have some fun with Small World. And that too plays very quickly. You can play a game in under a half an hour.
Small World was one of the iPad games I was looking at a long time ago to play with my daughter, as one that you could pass between. Because I think you can play it where you set up multiplayer, but like on the same iPad, so that
you can do pass and play. Yep.
Pass it to her. So those games like that are fun.
And even though you're conquering races, there's no blood, there's no violence. You're just taking one set of pieces off the board and replacing them with the other. So it's very kid friendly. It's very fun, and cool for either playing in person or over the iPad. So over the multiplayer. Small World, Lords of Waterdeep, and I'll recommend Hearthstone again from Keith. It was very fun. I enjoyed it. gonna try to locate some ideas for deck building because I have some work to do.
Well, I gave you the links for Hearthhead, right?
You did.
That's a good one. Hearthhead.com is a good one. And there's a podcast out there that's actually really, really good and really funny called The Angry Chicken, which is one of the worst cards in Hearthstone, renamed and repurposed into this wonderful podcast that talks everything about from beginner tactics through the current meta and leveling up and stuff like that. So, and the pro tournaments that are already happening for thousands and thousands of dollars, they cover that stuff too.
Wow.
Some of the board games they've been putting on the iOS have just been stellar. They're really fun, really awesome. I'm anxious to try some more, but looking forward to it. Anyway, last one for the evening, but not least, Gary has one. Hopefully I pronounce this right. Todoist.
Yeah, this is probably the least, and it's not that exciting, but I was hard-pressed to come up with a pick. So Todoist is essentially a productivity app that is available for at least iOS. There's also a web-based version and a Mac version, and it's essentially a to-do list app to kind of help you keep organized. And I've been using it for a couple months now, and I really like it. I've tried lots of different sort of, help me keep track of all the little crap I got to do at any given point in time. Applications from a bunch of post-its to different things, and I found this works really well, and I think it's because there is an iOS app and there is a desktop version, and they sync up together nicely. And one thing that I also like about it is that you can create templates from a list of things. So if you have like a big project you're doing and you have several tasks, you create a template, and if it's something you do on a regular basis, it saves that out as a text file that you import for the next time. Just a text file. It's not some weird format. It's just a regular text file. You can just change whatever you want it and then re-import it the next time. So it's a very simple, very easy to use, well thought out to-do list.
And I'm just looking at the video while you were talking, and to me it looks like it's formatted very much like Google Drive.
A little bit, yeah. But there's a free version that you can start off with, and then if you like it, you can move to the paid version, which I don't know, like $20 or $30 a year. So
I've been looking for something like that. I tried Evernote, and I really didn't like Evernote.
And this is different than Evernote. One of the main features that got me about this particular to-do list is that it has a notes feature in the paid version where you can add updates to what's going on with that. With whatever you're to do, say whatever, finish a certain project by a certain day, you can keep adding update notes to it to kind of keep track of what you've been doing on it. And a lot of the other apps don't have that ability, so that's one of the features that I really like.
And can you share these with other folks that have Todoist?
You can.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I think even maybe without, people don't have to have it. So I don't know. To me, it was just very simple and very easy to use. So
I have a love-hate relationship with Evernote.
Me too. Yeah. It looks so cool.
Well, and it is so powerful that it keeps sucking me back in because it can do what I want it to do. It's just never as easy as it should be.
Right.
Nothing in Evernote is as simple as it should be.
No, I totally agree.
But it is there. So I keep using it. I keep coming back to it.
And every once in a while,
they even added list building a little while ago, where you can actually build your own list, which I use for Hearthstone actually, of the cards I still need, and I'll check them off as I get them.
Every once in a while, they'll put out some press release or you'll see an article where Evernote has been updated, new and better. We fixed everything that was wrong that you complained about. No. And I go back in and gets, like he said, sucked back in, and nothing's changed that I hated about it.
Well, not only do I suck back in, I actually still use it. I'm a regular user of it. I have a real dislike for their interface, and I don't know what it is. There's some core interface designer there that is still there that hasn't been fired.
Well, then maybe Todoist, Todoist is the app for you.
Maybe I don't know. I use actually something called Fetch Notes, not to steal your pick. But it's an even simpler version from what you're saying. Fetch Notes is a simple single list where you can just list anything. And the neat thing is you can list it all in one list because you use hashtags to categorize it. And so if you want to search out what your grocery items are, which are different from your honeydew list, which is different from your cards and books you want to read and stuff like that, you just grab the hashtag you want and it'll just show you those. So.
Cool.
It's dead
cool,
super simple. And
Well,
free.
folks, we have we've given you bonus time tonight. We've more than compensated for the free episode you're getting with some extra time. So I hope you enjoyed it. Next
We have to
week,
compensate people for being free?
yeah. Next week's show, we have a special surprise beer. Whoa. But in the meantime, thanks as always to Stu Venable with Epoxy Boggards for the use of Longer Than Life as our theme song. You can find their stuff at iTunes or at epoxyboggards.com, POXYBOGGARDS.com. We're at the Twitters. Keith's at Wolfman K. Jeremy is at Jeremy Brooks. Gary is at Always Breaking, and I'm at Rebrob, R-E-B-R-O-B. If you want to drop into our Google chat, we basically have that open for friends of the show all day long, and the three of them at least are chatting all constantly throughout the day. I pop in every now and then. So if you want that, send us an email to the Pint of No Return Show.
Or contact one of us on Twitter.
Yeah, or contact one of us with that. That's really easy too.
PNRShow@gmail.com.
PNRShow@gmail.com. Thank you, Keith, and thank you, Gary and Jeremy. And this has been the Pint of No Return Show.
I'd rather have lager than life. I'll take a strong stout over stride. I prefer to confer with a half pint of ale than live a long life till my private parts fail. For life without liquor is to no avail. So bring me lager for life. I'd rather have lager.
He who has boobs shall wield the power of Thor.
Stout over stride.